Thank you, Dr. Singh. I will now share my screen. Thank you to the organizers as well. Thank you for the warm introduction and for bringing us together. This is a picture of the mountains just north of Ottawa, Canada. So in the Baha'i Faith, there is no minister or other clergy. So this presentation includes many direct quotes from the Baha'i writings and perspective on the environment. We'll begin with an example of a Baha'i writing and a prayer that interweave nature as a metaphor. Then we will look briefly at the Baha'i perspective on social good and addressing climate change. We will then look at excerpts from a recent statement by the Baha'i international community called One Planet, One Habitation, that seeks to advance the international discourse around environmental protection. And we'll close with some inspiration from Baha'u'llah, who is the founder of the Baha'i Faith. Ye are the fruits of one tree and the leaves of one branch. Deal ye one with another with the utmost love and harmony, with friendliness and fellowship. This is the Baha'i version of the Golden Rule. Baha'u'llah, whose title means the glory of God, is the founder, as I mentioned. Here is a prayer actually that I learned as a young child, and it interweaves nature in its description of children. It goes, "O God, educate these children. These children are the plants of thine orchard, the flowers of thy meadow, the roses of thy garden. Let thy rain fall upon them. Let the sun of reality shine upon them with thy love. Let thy breeze refresh them in order that they may be trained, grow and develop, and appear in the utmost beauty." Nature as a metaphor is not uncommon in Baha'i prayers and writings. Here's another quote from Baha'u'llah. "Be anxiously concerned with the needs of the age you live in, and center your deliberations on its exigencies and requirements. What are the pressing needs of today? Certainly, environmental protection is among them and is closely linked with the well-being of humanity." And the honor and distinction of the individual consist in this, that he among all the world's multitude should become a source of social good. Abdul-Baha is the son of Baha'u'llah and is seen as an example to the Baha'is of the world. So as you can see, I'm relying directly on much of the texts from the founders of the Baha'i Faith, as there is no clergy in the Baha'i Faith. Here's a quote from the Universal House of Justice, which is the international body of the Baha'i Faith that administers the faith today. "Every choice a Baha'i makes as employee or employer, producer or consumer, borrower or lender, benefactor or beneficiary leaves a trace, and the moral duty to lead a coherent life demands that one's economic decisions be in accordance with lofty ideals, that the purity of one's aims be matched by the purity of one's actions to fulfill those aims." So among the duties that the Universal House of Justice has are to advance the betterment of the world and the development of countries. The House of Justice trusts that in pursuing the many facets of their work of community building, social action, and involvement in the discourses of society, individuals, communities, and institutions will continually grow in their capacity to make a distinctive and effective contribution to addressing the multitudinous problems afflicting society and the planet, including those associated with climate change. This is from a letter of the Universal House of Justice about climate change from 2017. So the following are highlights excerpted from One Planet, One Habitation, which is a statement that seeks to advance the international discourse around environmental protection. It's a statement of the Baha'i international community. It came out in 2022, actually. If humanity's relationship with the natural world is to be refashioned, notions of progress, civilization, and development will need to be redefined. So long as such questions are answered according to values that prioritize possessions over relationships or acquisition over responsibility, a sustainable world will remain out of reach. The goal each nation must be working toward is well-being for all populations through means that ensure sustainable and harmonious relationships with the natural environment. The contributions of ever more populations, well coordinated and integrated, will be required to rebalance humanity's relationship with the natural world. Building capacity in individuals, communities, and institutions to contribute effectively to transformational change is therefore an indispensable element of effective environmental action. For the individual, this implies developing a range of interrelated capacities: scientific, technical, social, moral, and spiritual. Putting the world on more ecologically sustainable foundations requires a recasting of the global economic order. People and the planet need to be valued as explicitly today as profit and economic gain have been in the past. Concepts of contentment, sufficiency, and simplicity, which find little place in growth-driven paradigms, will have to be reclaimed and expanded. Patterns of life that have come to be associated with extreme wealth, devotion to convenience and luxury, for example, or high levels of consumption and waste, will need to be set aside. Basic notions of progress, development, and prosperity will need to be recast in far more holistic terms. Humanity's collective life suffers when any one group thinks of its own well-being in isolation from that of its neighbors, or pursues economic gain without regard for how the natural environment is affected. Every choice leaves a trace. And that last paragraph there, to me, is very indicative of the interconnection between one another and also between us and our environment. Much could be learned from a systematic and scientific inquiry into communities that are learning to apply spiritual principles, such as selflessness, solidarity with others, and stewardship for the natural world to advance broad-based social progress. Both science and religion are essential to the liberation of individuals and communities from the traps of ignorance and passivity. A more accurate understanding of human nature would encompass qualities and attitudes such as trustworthiness, mutual support, commitment to truth, and a sense of responsibility that are the building blocks of a stable social order. Justice is an important part of addressing environmental concerns. So the one planet, one habitation continues, but justice at the level of outcome is established only through the operation of justice at the level of process. At the individual level, justice calls for fair-mindedness in one's judgments and equity in one's treatment of others. At the group level, it is the practical expression of awareness that the interests of the individual and those of society are inextricably linked. It also requires a standard of truth-seeking far beyond the patterns of negotiation and compromise that tend to characterize present-day relations, a process of consultation and decision-making that is principled, candid, and fact-based. Justice demands coherence between word and deed. And you can see here on the left, this is a picture of the foreign minister of Tuvalu addressing the United Nations. Tuvalu is an island nation being rapidly submerged by rising sea levels due to climate change. The voices of those who have been disadvantaged by the current order will need to figure far more prominently into decision-making processes at all levels. Diverse cultural understandings of humanity's relationship with the natural world, especially those of indigenous peoples, can provide needed insights into the creation of more holistic and sustainable models for present and future generations. Justice demands a wide range of outcomes, that the benefits of human civilization be distributed with equity, for example, or that responsibility for undertaking necessary transitions be apportioned in light of actors' historic contributions to present climate crisis. Now onto the role of governments. The mandate of the state as steward of the common good is long-term in nature, transcending electoral cycles and political terms. Effective governance ensures the flourishing of all within a jurisdiction for generations to come. The state also bears crucial responsibility for governing the commons, whether within its own borders or in collaboration with other institutions beyond them. For example, in managing and caring for public goods that benefit all. Vital, therefore, will be government's role in developing long-term plans, advancing them methodically over time, and creating the conditions in which necessary advances become feasible. Gaps between the scale of action needed to address climate challenges and the measures actually undertaken are often attributed to a perceived absence of financial resources. Yet the prudent mobilization and expenditure of resources to advance the common good at scales commensurate with relevant needs is a fundamental responsibility of the state. Governing institutions, therefore, bear a critical duty toward both present and future generations. This responsibility confers on states a moral and ethical mandate to raise resources sufficient to address pressing and future requirements, with due consideration for standards of justice, capacity, and responsibility. It also requires that those resources be spent in furtherance of the well-being of humanity. Establishing new qualities and attitudes toward leadership will be essential if states are to effectively address environmental concerns. Personal character is central in this regard, and progress would be seen in leaders approaching public service as a responsibility, and not a path to personal gain, demonstrating accountability to ends higher than electoral victory or personal advancement, and taking decisions that are difficult but aligned with the greater good. Such instances of moral courage stand among leaders' most enduring achievements and will be remembered long after the calculations of any particular moment or political climate have faded. The gulf between intention and action is one of the central challenges facing humanity today. This gap can be bridged. Individuals, communities, and nations are contributing their share toward this goal every day. Yet, for action to rise to the scales required, far stronger consensus and collective will among the nations is needed around the values demanded by the current stage of humanity's development. It also calls for much greater resolve in putting those values into practice, recommitting to that which is beneficial to the common good, and discarding whatever stands in the way of answering the moral and practical call of the present hour. And the last quote from One Planet, One Habitation: "The world that beckons is one of integration and balance, beauty and maturity. It is a world with a redefined sense of progress, filled with communities and individuals working together with the support of institutions toward the realization of their highest aspirations." Now for the quotes from Baha'u'llah. "The purpose for which mortal men have, from utter nothingness, stepped into the realm of being is that they may work for the betterment of the world and live together in concord and harmony. The betterment of the world can be accomplished through pure and goodly deeds, and through commendable and seemly conduct. So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth." Thank you. That is the end of the slideshow.